or so. And what does he do? He deserts. Can you believe it? The last person I'd ever suspect of such betrayal. Unless, of course, there's something I don't know.
Hello, my name is Nik Von Crait and welcome to The Best RPG, the series where I try to find my favorite RPG of all time. In today's episode, we are once again looking at an indie RPG created in Europe. This time we move to Poland, where the team of Questline and Awaken Realms created Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, which is based on the board game of the same name created by Awaken Realms and first released in 2019. The video game, however, started its time in early access in the March of 2023, before being fully launched on the 23rd of May 2025, which means it released in one of the most stacked years when it comes to RPG releases. We had Clair Obscur and Oblivion Remaster in April, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Avowed in February, the first Berserker Kazan in March, and Elden Ring Night Rain in May. All titles that easily overshadowed the game's release. But because the game has been in early access for a couple of years, people were already aware of its existence. And through mostly positive content produced by other content creators, the game managed to find success in a stacked year for RPGs. A lot of YouTubers use the likes of Skyrim to indie Skyrim, or what the sequel to Skyrim should be like while describing the game, or just for clickbaity titles. Now, it's not totally a lie to compare it to Skyrim, because the game truly is the Scrolls-like. But it isn't just a cheap indie Skyrim, it is something more than that. Yet at the same time, it is still far from being the perfect RPG. But for the first attempt at an RPG of this scale by an indie developer, this game shows real potential. But as long as there's potential, there will be flaws. Before we start, I want to tackle the biggest problem straight away. As of the release of the video, please do not buy the PS5 version of this game. The game has massive performance issue on the console, but it's not the developer's fault, as they are trying their hardest to get the game running. They're updating the game on a regular basis. The problem lies with the PS5 here, and the engine that Tainted Grail was developed in, the Unity engine. These two don't seem like a good match, and it makes the game almost unplayable because of stuttering and constant frame drops. Especially if you enter the second area of the game. That was actually the point that I stopped playing on the PS5, because I got too annoyed by the performance. Now don't get me wrong. Even on the PC, the game has some issues with stuttering from time to time, but it's nothing compared to the state of the PS5 version. Now, aside from the performance issues, the game often has some audio issues as well. In the cinematic cutscenes, the audio will turn up to the max, which feels like a bomb going off in your ears. To me, this was one of the biggest issues with the game, especially when you enter the main city in Act 2, where a cutscene starts upon you entering it, and my ears are still traumatized. Plague-stricken zone. Excuse me? Another problem I had with the audio were the sounds that magic makes. Magic just feels really awkward at times when you're casting it. You can charge up certain attacks, and it would be lovely to have some kind of noise indicating that the spell is charged, like a little ding, but the game doesn't make any sound until the spell hits the target, and even then, it's kind of a hit and miss. The soundtrack of the game, on the other hand, is actually pretty decent. Got a really catchy main menu song, and the music as you roam around the world is also really enjoyable and doesn't annoy you after walking around the map for a while. The combat in this game is also really good. Your typical Elder Scrolls combat, but you get a dodge, or dash as the game calls it. Makes the combat feel more faster and much more enjoyable. And even if the audio isn't good on spells, the impact that certain spells have just make them feel so much cooler and stronger than in a Skyrim, for example. My biggest gripe with the combat of the game is its inconsistency. From the start of Act 2, you will have random difficulty spikes in enemies. They aren't more difficult to fight, but some enemies will randomly become damage sponges. And in Act 3, it gets even worse. You will run into a group of enemies, kill one of them in 2 to 3 shots, and then one of the guys in the group will just take 8 hits or more to kill, even if he's the exact same enemy type. It just feels so inconsistent. And inconsistent is probably the best word to describe the whole game. The game takes a really big dip during the 3rd act. It is also here where I just lost most of my enjoyment of the game and decided to do 4 Elden Ring challenge runs on my stream instead of continuing with the game and finishing this video. But after a couple of days, I did force myself to finish the game so that I can finish this video and tell you guys about my experience with Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. So let's jump into the story and the world of the game so I can better explain my issues with the game. Awakened Realm describes the setting of the board game as blending Arthurian legends and Celtic mythology with a unique vision, and the video game doesn't stray far from the source material. The dark and almost Lovecraftian spin on the story of King Arthur. In this setting, King Arthur is dead. The land of Avalon is haunted by something called the Weirdness, which is slowly wiping out humanity. The Weirdness will haunt you at nighttime. Enemies will become stronger, the music and the atmosphere will change, and if you spend too much time in the Weirdness, the night will come after you, trying to end you. On the other side, the land also has a problem with the Red Death Plague, which transforms humans into zombie-like creatures, and the only hope the people have is to revive the once and future king again.
The all-consuming Red Death. 600 years ago, King Arthur led the Great Escape from the homelands, where our kingdoms were ravaged by the plague. Leading people to Avalon, he started the Age of Conquest and took the island from the Four Dwellers. Using the mysterious powers of Menhirs, together with Merlin, they cleansed the land of the Weirdness, a primordial force of chaos and possibility. But now, long after the death of the king, Camelot is in shambles as Avalon fractures into chaos. Old legends are gone, and the Weirdness is creeping back into our lands. The bleeding heart of the plague has started beating once more, and the Red Death has returned. Rulers of the island Asylum, an order of the Red Priests, are desperate to stop it by any means necessary. Rotting in one of their cells is a stranger who might bring a spark of change to this cursed island stuck in everlasting autumn.
Welcome to Avalon. From here on out, the video will contain spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled by the story recap, please use the timestamps on the video or in the description to jump ahead. So just like most RPGs that are Bethesda coded, we start our journey in a prison on the island Asylum, mentioned in the intro. The guard asks us about our backstory, and the answer to this question decides what the starting skill of our character will be. As always, we pick the mage build for this playthrough. It is here that we get freed by a man named Caradoc. He shoots the guard, then gives us the key to the cell, and tells us to meet with him deeper in the asylum. From here we are free to explore the tutorial area, and it actually is one of my favorites in any game of this type. It doesn't pin you down and makes you follow a step-by-step tutorial. The game just puts you in and lets you explore this area on your own, but also gives you tips when they introduce something new. Like for example the pickaxe mechanic, which allows you to enter a hidden room here. They also teach you how to lockpick, which thankfully isn't locked behind putting points into lockpicking. That has always been my big problem with RPGs. If you have a lockpick minigame, why do I need a skill check? It makes sense if there isn't a minigame, but let me pick a hard lock if you have a minigame for it. The game gives you enough weapons in this area to try out what kind of playstyle you want to go for, And if you explore enough, you will find 2 boss fights hidden away in this area. These both have intro cutscenes, which for some reason start being a common thing in the game in the later parts. They just appear for a boss or 2, leading me back to the inconsistency point. So you make your way through this place until you meet Caradoc again, and he tells you something here. I guess he didn't really want to talk to us. We continue through the asylum where we find the first Menhir statue. We can enter the statue, and inside of it we find a floating orb. This orb is a part of Arthur. He takes us through the story of what happened before the start of the game in this memory of his, before hitting us with one of the coolest cutscenes this game has to offer, which doesn't say a lot because this is literally the only cinematic in this style, but I'll just let you look at it for yourselves.
Oh, awaken thee, once and future king.
After that intro, we wake up in the chamber that Arthur is being revived in. But to be able to do that, we need to find all of the parts of him. These include Excalibur, the Shield of Palamedes, and lastly, Arthur's crown. So with the king not being able to go on his own, he asks us if he can be our Johnny Silverhand, and we accept. This means that for the rest of the game, Arthur is now a part of us, and we are the vessel that needs to bring him back. After leaving the chamber, we return to the island asylum where our escape continues. Further into the asylum, we meet our first required boss who guards the door to our freedom. But he isn't the biggest challenge since he just stands still and throws rocks at us. After defeating the giant sentinel, we finally arrive at the beach where Caradoc is already waiting for us, ready to depart, but before we get to leave, we get a tutorial on the bonfire. Now, the bonfire is one of the most important systems of the game. It is here where you can level up, cook food, do alchemy, fast travel from it, identify mysterious items, or talk to Arthur to learn some more things about the world. And that leads me into another problem I have with the game, the fast traveling system. If you want to fast travel, you either need to find a pillar which is located in front of important locations, or fuel the bonfire with your cobweb. And it can be rather tedious at times, because you can only fast travel to the pillars instead of just everywhere, and sometimes the pillars for fast travel aren't that well placed. So if you're not close to a pillar, you need to have cobweb on hand to fast travel to a location that you need to go to. And that led me to hoarding the cobweb instead of actually using it on anything else. So to get the advanced options of the bonfire, you need to fuel it with 10 cobwebs. This will then allow access to fast traveling, alchemy, identifying items, and access to your stash, which is like a chest to store your items in. All of the other things you can do without the cobweb. The most important thing you can do though is rest at the bonfire to skip the night. After doing that, we and Caradoc set off on the journey to Avalon to make our way to the Horns of the South. But before we go, Caradoc reveals to us that he actually wants to kill Arthur once and for all. In this dialogue, we can actually choose if we tell Caradoc about Arthur or not. The problem is, you make that choice before knowing what his plan is. It doesn't change much though, but some of the dialogue throughout the game. The thing is, Caradoc isn't stupid. He knows what's going on, even if you lie to him. So you might ask yourself, what does he want at the Horns of the South? Well, it turns out that is where Excalibur is located. So let's grab our bags and set sail for Avalon.
The sea was restless, waves slamming against the hull as you left the island asylum behind. Caradoc's boat cut through the black waters, its course set for Avalon's shores. Then the deep stirred. A shudder ran through the vessel from neither wind nor tide, but from something far below. A presence, ancient and watching. And then it struck. The boat lurched violently, wood splintering as the sea itself rose in fury. A shadow moved beneath the surface, vast, coiling, inescapable. The next wave swallowed everything. Darkness took you. Salt filled your lungs, and then light. The crash of waves, the cold kiss of wet sand. You were alive. The sea had spared you, but not without a cost.
And here we are once again stranded on a beach with only one goal in mind: get to the Horns of the South. From here we have multiple ways to start our journey. We can either go around exploring the map first or directly head for the Horns. Now, since this is my second go around on Act 1, I decided to go for the Druidic shrines first. These shrines are scattered throughout all of the 3 maps and give you bonuses and armor pieces for turning in animal parts. And if you collect all of the shrines in one region, you get a bigger bonus boost to your character. There are also some other shrines like the Stagfather Shrine, which requires you to hunt down some animals in a specific amount of time to unlock a boost. And there are also shrines that are one-offs and appear in areas where a certain animal is more common, like for example the Wolf Shrine. While exploring the map, you can also stumble onto a variety of side quests that just start when you stumble onto them. But if I would talk about all of them here, we would probably have a video that's even longer than the Claire Obscure video, so I will just mention a couple that I found cool in each area. A couple of cool quests include the search for the Andraste, where you have to search for a shipwreck and its crew to find out what they were transporting, and you end up in this cave with a boss that drops a really cool weapon, and you also find one of the best spells in this cave. Then we get sent to find a hidden hatchet in some ruins just to find out there's a chef in there who's obsessed with this cheese and fish recipe and wants us to desperately try it. And if we do this, we get a spell that can turn anyone into cheese. And lastly, we run into a woman whose man is locked in a cage for attacking a soldier of the Horns. And we need to figure out why he attacked them, since that isn't how the man usually behaves. Turns out they slept next to the Archspire on their journey, and a creature took his soul away from him while they were there. We do the same thing to enter the creature's realm and kill it. Unfortunately, it's too late to save the man, and when we come back, the wife asks us to end his suffering as the man is only left as a husk. Those are some of the ones that are still stuck in my head, but there are way more quests and interesting locations in this first area. But let's set out for the Horns now. As we arrive at the town, we notice the guard being drunk on the job. but we turn a blind eye to it and he just lets us in. It is here where we have most of the key and returning features you will see in the main towns. You have your merchant, your blacksmith, your bounty board, and your stat. But we are here for the captain of the Horns of the South, and as it turns out, he's not here. Instead, we have to talk to Fergus, who doesn't want to tell us where the captain is unless we gain the trust of his people. It's just your typical RPG stuff that this game unfortunately falls into from time to time. Good for me that I remembered that exploration gets rewarded, so I make my way from the Horns of the South to the top of the map, where we run into the Del Riata camp, or Del Rita. The game never decides how to pronounce it, and the Del Riata themselves even stop to remember how they are called. This is yet another one of those little inconsistencies that hold the game back for me. Anyways, we reach the camp and we need to gain the trust of their leader to get into the temple at the back of the camp. This is way faster than the quest for the horns. The Del Riata only want us to bring a gift to the horns as a peace offering, and after we do that, we are allowed to enter the temple at the back of the camp. And it is here where we run into One Eye, the real leader of the tribe, and Captain Brandon. They tell us they want to march to Camelot and take it over. And as a first step, they want us to take out Galahad, Knight of the Round Table. And of course, instead of doing it themselves, the task falls onto us. So we make our way to Galahad's camp to talk to him. It is here where we can make a decision that affects the ending of the game. We can either rat out the revolution being started and slaughter them all together, or take out Galahad to send a message to Camelot. Of course, I decide for what in my opinion is the right choice, and I step up to Galahad and take him down. After that, we get to go back to the temple and be a witness to the tribe and the Horns of the South uniting, which leads to one of the jankiest cutscenes in the game.
Brothers, today marks a new chapter in the history of the Horns of the South. Today, we put an end to fear and poverty. I understand your pain. I know you feel helpless in the face of the looming terror of the weirdness. Camelot has abandoned us, brothers. For years, they've given us no aid. All they do is take our resources, send us to senseless slaughter, and keep us in the dark. Camelot doesn't see us as equals. They've forgotten Seawall Firstfoot's legacy and the promise King Arthur made to us. We were meant to stand as equals. We were meant to be just as powerful as them. And all this time, do you know what they've done to the founder of the Horns of the South? For over 600 years, Seawall has been alive, forgotten by King Arthur and all of Camelot. You don't have to take my word for it. Seawall's tomb is open. Go and see for yourselves. I say, enough. Enough of being fed a rotten myth that turned out to be one great lie.
Good job.
We swore loyalty to the torturers of one of the noblest knights to ever walk Avalon. I say, enough. We will no longer honour an oath made to dishonourable people. We won't let ourselves be exploited any longer. But, my brothers, I bring news. Galahad the Pure, the same Galahad who threatened to burn half our garrison at the stake, is dead. Galahad's death is our chance to break free from Camelot.
There's some wonky editing in this cutscene.
No more risking everything for those who only know how to take. You're probably wondering, how can we
Like
protect
that.
the South on our own? How can we defend ourselves when Camelot comes to reclaim their slaves? Yes, that's what we are to them. I know the lockdown of the fortress surprised you, and for that, I truly apologise, but it was necessary to keep you from attacking our new allies, the Del Rita tribes, led by One Eye.
I know my brothers, I know. This must be a shock, especially since I didn't share my plans with you earlier. But hear me out. Thanks to this alliance between the Orns of the South and the Dalriada tribes, we are securing the safety of the South and our independence.
There's no Dalriatas here.
The tribes will provide us with the military support our depleted ranks desperately need. The tribes will help us rid the South of the bandits who've plagued our people for years. Together, we'll share knowledge and resources to ensure a better future for all Southerners.
We will not drain your resources. In fact, we'll replenish your armories and fill your pantries. We'll stand together, fighting side by side to bring peace and order back to the South. In return, all we ask is your loyalty. If you see a brother from the Dalriada fight in the Camelotian, stand with our brother. That's all.
Of course, if anyone isn't in favor of this alliance, you have the right to leave the service. I declare a new era for the Horns of the South. Those who don't wish to help build this future are released from their oaths. To those who choose to stay, I promise a good life, and you won't face any more threats. Now, brothers, return to your duties and rest easy. The Horns of the South will endure, and soon we'll be stronger than ever before.
Okay. Yeah, there was some really wonky editing in that cutscene. Speaking of janky things, we can now run up to Excalibur, which was in the middle of the horns the whole time. We just need to use our power to be able to touch it. And this leads us back to the revival chamber and shows us a cutscene that once again is way too loud and not synced at all.
Enough, Merlin. You can't keep throwing lives into this abyss. These experiments, they're destroying what remains of us.
Destroying us? They're what's keeping us alive. Do you think the Fall Dwellers will stop for pity or mercy? Every soul we lose here saves 10 more on the battlefield. You told me to do this. You sanctioned this. And I'm close to getting it right. I know it.
No, we can't justify this. There's no victory worth such a cost.
You know full well, Arthur, that this isn't about victory. It's about survival. If we don't push these boundaries, there will be no future for your kingdom. For Avalon, you dream of peace, but without victory, there will be no peace to dream of. The path ahead is brutal, but if we relent now, we lose everything.
And yet we keep losing people and gaining nothing in return. We must change the path.
They volunteered for this.
They volunteered to save our kingdom, and you've gotten no closer to doing it. Their sacrifices cannot be in vain, Merlin. Find another way. Use your mind, your wisdom. Leave this slaughterhouse you've created behind.
A different way. That will take time, and resources we may not have. The enemy won't wait.
They will if I make them. Whatever it takes, I will buy you that time. Find me a weapon that wins this war without annihilating what we fight to protect.
Whatever it takes.
Yes. Let it be known that it was my decision, and I will bear
It is
the
legitimately
consequences
so
of it.
loud.
Oh no, my king. People can never know. It was all my idea, and you knew nothing about it. All of us have our role to play. You are the leader, and they need to love you. If we win, you need to become more than a man. You need to become a symbol.
And that concludes our journey in Act 1. and it is time for us to move on from the Horns of the South and on to Kuanach. But before we go, I quickly want to give my thoughts on the area in general. I think the Horns of the South is a great first area with good variety in quests and dungeon designs. That is actually one of the few things that stays consistent throughout the journey. The design of almost every dungeon is unique, and that is something that really stands out here for me. I never got bored checking out what they have to offer in every little cave or building. When it comes to the visual look, this game is absolutely stunning. I just wish the main city would have been designed in a different way, but it'll become a bigger problem once we reach Kuanach. I think all main cities of the story aren't that well designed and rather tedious to move around. So let us see if Kuanach can keep up the pace or if it starts slowing down now. Welcome to Kuanach, the second map of the game, and it's interesting they give you the choice to enter it from two different sides, one being more difficult than the other. The design of the whole area though really reminds me of the Shadow of the Erdtree map. This map has a good variety, unlike the first and last area. We have a swamp, an area full of weirdness, which is really blue in color, the fields before Kuanach, which have a yellow tone, and the wild areas around it that have a lush green and pink tone, which is really pleasing to look at. If only the main town of Kuanach would look as good. As we discussed earlier, we enter Kuanach and get jump scared by the Menhir cutscene. After the scare, we wake up in Kuanach where Lord Yvain picked us up after we passed out at the Menhir statue. And all of a sudden, we are the most important person in town because the Menhir statues actually have a purpose. They can keep the weirdness at bay, and when we entered the city, the Menhir lit up, which means it protected the city. Unfortunately, the Menhir soon faded and Yvain needs our help to get the Menhir to stay fully lit up, and for our help, he will give us the Shield of Palamedes. There is a Shield of Palamedes on display in front of the Menhir, but that is just a fake, so we need to help Yvain to find the real one. So for us to light up the Menhir, we need to find the Menhirites. These are two tablets hidden in two dungeons. These two are some of my favorite quests in the whole game. First, we move to the Corrupted Temple. This is the one I like the least out of the two, because it's a huge area, but it is considered an indoor area, which means there's no map in this place, and that makes it so hard to navigate, and the layout of the temple also isn't the best, so you will get lost in this. So this place was taken over by something pretending to be the All-Mother, and that something also holds the Menhirites. The temple is full of corrupted priestesses who will try to kill you, and you also have a cool boss fight against Percival here, who has one of the cooler boss intros. After defeating Percival, we move on and find the false All-Mother, and we get into a fight with a Singworm, who's protecting the chamber of the false deity. After we defeat the Singworm and talk to the deity, we get the Menhirites and can move on to the next target. Welcome to Sagramor's castle, my favorite quest in the whole game. This quest just does the unsettling and dark atmosphere so well, you almost feel like you're playing a horror game instead of an RPG. Sagramor's castle is haunted by death, and we need to free Sagramor from his endless cycle of death. But to be able to get to Sagramor, we need to do two little side quests. One is to help out Claire, who is stuck writing in her tower, and to free her from her chains, we need to enter her writings and take out the man that she is attached to. After we freed her, we get told to find the midwife. She needs help in finding all of the lost babies around the castle. It is one of those WTF moments I had while playing the game. This is just so out there, but cool at the same time, and after finding the babies, we can finally meet the king and the queen. But the queen isn't the biggest fan of us and wants to kill us, but we are faster, so she dies. And after the queen dies, we can finally talk to Sagramor, who literally just dies after our talk is over. But we do get the Menhirites for it, so I guess that's one positive. And we also get the armor of these two, which is insanely good for a mage build. Now let's snap back to reality and ignite the Menhir using the help of the local druid Maggot, who we had to help out in a previous side quest. After lighting the Menhir again, Lord Yvain decides to start the search for the Holy Grail, as that will stop Camelot from taking the Menhir of Kuanach away until he eventually returns. But before he leaves, he gives us the Shield of Palamedes, which leads to yet another memory of Arthur.
You can't just allow for things like that to happen. Not ever again. Not when the kingdom is beginning to find its way. You're the king, and that comes with a whole lot more responsibility. You can't let people like Merlin do what they want. even if their intentions are pure. You must see the danger now!
The memory of Seawall is my burden. Harder to bear than I'd like to admit. But I've realized that his story is what happens when power answers to no one.
Then do something so that a tragedy like that never happens again!
Palamedes, you've always spoken your mind, even when I didn't want to hear it. You've stood beside me through the darkest days and fought not for glory, but for Avalon and its people.
I have done only what I believe was right, nothing more.
Yes, and that made me realize that Merlin was wrong. The legacy I leave won't endure through the legend of a single man, whether it's me or anyone else. I decided to give my sword to the Horns of the South, to bind them not to me, but to the people. But Avalon needs more than that. It needs structures, memory, and resistance to corruption. It needs the foundation of something greater than any one of us.
A shield?
Yes. One to guard Avalon, even from itself. You've proven yourself time and again, so my shield is yours, Palamedes. Not just to wield, but to become. Let your bloodline anchor what my reign could not.
And you believe I am worthy of such a responsibility? I will not fail you, my king.
Don't carry this burden for me, Palamedes. You never have. Carry it for Avalon, and may your name be a blessing upon this land for generations to come.
Before Yvain leaves on his journey, we say our goodbyes and get informed that a shady man is waiting for us in Kuanacht. It turns out that it is Caradoc, who informs us that once we gather the final piece of Arthur, we will meet in the Charred Conclave to end things once and for all. So we know what we need to do now. Head to the Forlorn Swords, find the crown, go to the Charred Conclave, and decide the fate of Avalon. That concludes our adventure in Kuanacht. There are some more side quests in Kuanacht, but as I said, I can't go through all of them, but I did go through my two favorite ones with you. Now it's time to head into the Forlorn Swords for the finale of the game. And for once the Skyrim comparison makes sense since we enter a full-on snow area, which design-wise and content-wise is unfortunately a letdown. The game really starts off strong and drops off really hard in the third act. If you look at any of the reviews that came out around launch, you hear most of them saying they played until this part or are 20 hours in. A few actually talk about the third act, and most of them have the same opinion on it as me. The third act just feels so repetitive. Gerfan already waits for us at the Forlorn Swords. It is here where we get the main quest of this area, which is uniting all of the tribes in the area. And that means going to all of the tribes, doing quests for them to gain their trust and have them join you. So here we go again with the same main quest as the first two areas, but this time you have to help 5 different tribes. It gets so boring so fast, since it's just the same stuff over and over again. The side quests also take a step back. There really aren't any memorable ones in the third act. There's one light at the end of the tunnel though, and that is the fact that you can skip all of these quests and just go straight to the dungeon that holds the crown. And since I have lost my patience with the game, let us enter the dungeon and get the crown. This area is basically just a boss rush with some giants, some knights, and weird spawns. And at the end we can find Arthur's crown, which leads us into another memory of his.
First, you used these people to win yourself a kingdom, and now you herded them here under threat of being stomped to death by giants if they leave or disobey. After all that they've gone through, all that they've done, all that they've suffered, this is how you intend to repay them?
No kingdom will stand with people like them within its borders. They would have to change their ways. The Del Rita are not ready for this. You know this.
You did worse than all of them combined, and you are the one responsible for all they've done so far. They fought for your name and under your banners, Does this mean you're not fit to be a king? Not ready to have a kingdom?
I left the heritage of Pendragon behind me. I severed the ties between myself and my tribe. I lost all that tied me to the past when I became king. I set a new path for myself. They are not ready to do that.
Bullshit. You forced them to go against their sacred traditions. You destroyed their identities. They betrayed their comrades because you ordered them to. They kidnapped the children of the giants because you told them to do it. Everything they did was so that you could win this war. And now what? You're going to punish them for being your best, fiercest soldiers, most loyal of your men?
This is not...
So stop with your excuses already. You broke them, and now you're abandoning them to starve or freeze to death in these damned lands.
This kingdom needs to be built on peace, Caradoc. Letting them live among merchants, lords, and ladies in Camelot or Timberwall. How would that go?
Exactly as anyone would expect it to go.
So we would end up with a civil war. Right after we won the war that almost annihilated us all.
Oh, damn you. I've had enough. I stood by you through everything. Even what you did to me. To Seawall. I let it all slide. I told myself it was for something. For a noble cause. But this is where I draw the line. I renounce my oaths, and I'm walking away. Put a blade in my back if that helps you sleep. I don't care. Not anymore.
It is here where we can also decide the fate of the Delriata by choosing what the giants do. We choose to have them help the Delriata in their quest to take Camelot. Now that we have the crown, we can go to the Charred Conclave to decide the fate of Avalon. But before we do that, I want to mention my big disappointment here. Why do we talk about Camelot all game? Set up an invasion for it. We can even go to the gates of Camelot, but we can never actually enter it. And this is it. Imagine Fallout New Vegas without Hoover Dam, Baldur's Gate 3 without Baldur's Gate, Clair Obscur without the monolith, and so on and so forth. There are a few other undercooked mechanics, like you can kind of romance people in here, but the moments that trigger these relationship moments feel kind of random. Oh yeah, and there's also your little follower that you get back in the Horns of the South. You can feed him and he'll get different combat forms, but I just kind of miss having a proper companion. I guess they kind of are replaced by the summons you can have. And yes, not every game needs a companion, but I kind of wish I had someone who tags along with me in here. Enough complaining, let us just go and wrap up this story and see what awaits us at the Charred Conclave. It is here where Caradoc awaits us, and we enter the portal to meet all of the different options we have represented by 3 characters. Caradoc means the death of Arthur and the fight against the king. Orin means the revival of Arthur and the fight against Caradoc. And Harp represents us becoming the host of the soul and fighting against both Caradoc and Arthur. For those of you that don't know, Harp is always around during the story and represents the human part of Arthur. He randomly appears everywhere we go, but he doesn't know his purpose until this final moment, where he begs us to end Arthur and take the soul for ourselves so that he can finally be free. I picked every choice to show you what happens, so here are the 3 endings. First is Caradoc's ending.
You brought down the cycle with steady hands and no promise of glory. You did not claim the throne. You buried it. There is no king now. Only the truth you made and the path others may follow. You had no answers, only scars and the will to keep walking. And sometimes that was enough to keep others going too.
Second is Arthur's ending.
Through your sacrifice, the king returned, entire, unbroken, and ready to reclaim his throne. You held faith that Avalon's fate still turned with him, that one last rising could bring balance to the broken land. Now he rules again, and the world bends to the weight of your choice. For salvation or for ruin. You gave everything to restore the king, and your journey ended with his return. Closing your eyes upon the sight of Arthur's triumph, you felt no regret, only the certainty that your final choice had been the right one.
And last but not least is the ending where we become the king ourselves.
You took Arthur's power for yourself. Whatever drove you, need, ambition, or will alone, the strength of a king was now yours to command. Maybe you weren't ready. Maybe nobody ever is. But you decided to try. It's a heavy thing, trying to do right where others have failed. Still, you stepped forward, carrying the soul and every choice that brought you here. You ruled not as Arthur reborn, but as yourself, flawed, resolute, untested. Avalon changed beneath your hand, and history will decide what that truly meant.
And that ends our time with Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. It's hard for me to really decide how I should rank this game because the first act is really enjoyable and the second act slows a bit down, but it's still decent. But the third act just completely dragged down the whole game for me. Didn't even mention the guilds of the game because they feel so unfinished, kind of rushed. Not like the guilds in Elder Scrolls, which have a proper storyline and are almost integral to every playthrough. Whereas in this game, I think you can just leave them out and not feel like you missed anything. Now, I have pointed out a lot of negatives in this video, but you have to remember we are talking about a game made by an indie studio here. We have 50 people that worked on this game. Just can't compare this to a AAA game by a big studio. It simply wouldn't be fair. And as I said earlier, for the first game of this type, the studio has done so well with this. And I don't mean to bash the game because I genuinely enjoyed my experience with the first two acts of the game. So these are just my thoughts on the game. I would love to know what you guys think about it, so let me know in the comments below. As for my rating, I give Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon, 3 out of 5. This game has potential and I would like to see what the studio does with their next game. It was somewhat refreshing to see this dark tone in an RPG like this. And I think you should give it a try if it interests you. Just stay away from the PS5 version of the game and maybe wait until you can pick up a good deal on Steam or GOG instead. Alright. That's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode of The Best RPG and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And we'll see each other on the next episode of The Best RPG or on one of my streams over on Twitch. Links in the description below. I hope all of you have a marvelous rest of your day. Good night, whatever time it is for you, and I'm out. Peace.